Hello there. In this video, we're going to be talking about something that, well, it's been said that in one generation we can change our entire economy for the better if we simply teach financial literacy to that next generation. Well, we'll be talking about that very topic in this video, so stay tuned. So this is kind of a big topic, but it's important to understand that our individual choices ripple out through the greater economy, right? So when we begin to understand that, that impacts things like habits and how little habits at the individual level are going to have greater economic consequences. What our ignorance does on the global, again, if we keep thinking about ripple effect, our ignorance ripples through in a negative way. Our knowledge and skills can do it on a positive way. Our individual habits will impact on the greater good. All of those concepts, all those things, just how that happens, that's what we're going to be talking about in this video, so stay tuned. So our economy is made up of millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, really, individual choices and decisions. Those choices and decisions ripple through the whole economy. For example, well over 60% of our GDP is based on consumer spending, right? So our choices are what driving the economy. On a flip side of that, if we begin to understand what savings and so just our understanding of what happens when we save money. When we save money, and we invest that money, or we have a bank invest it for us, that money is never stagnant unless we're like burying it in the sand, putting it under our mattress. That money gets invested in businesses, sometimes going businesses, right? Businesses that are already established. And other times, new upstart businesses. But that money is fluid and it flows through the economy. It flows through from spending, right? The things we buy, but also through our investing in savings and can be even direct investing. So the more we actually are able to save, that can really help grow the economy in lots of ways through new job creation, new business growth, all right? So the understanding of that our individual decisions have a cumulative and compounding effect is really important to know. Now, there's data out there that countries where the general population has a really pretty good handle on financial literacy, their economic stability is much sounder. Switzerland would be a good example. It's important to understand all these concepts about financial literacy, because then our decisions are sounder decisions, more thoughtful decisions. In those decisions we make consumer spending-wise and investment and savings-wise will then trickle throughout the economy. And there's more of less susceptible to the sudden spurges of spending or debt spending, which can create these bubbles, etc., that when a bubble bursts, that's not a good thing, right? The more the individual understands how those sort of things happen and work and have a good handle on our emotions, because sometimes these bubbles happen because of emotions. You know, oh, I'm going to miss out if I don't get in now. I'm going to miss out if I don't get in now. And without looking at some of the real financial aspects behind the growth of this bubble, you're reacting more to emotion than you really are your thinking and even to a certain extent your intuition and what your gut's telling you. When you do that as an individual basis, it can have a stabilizing or destabilizing impact on the overall economic growth. I want you to think about something for a moment. Over 54% of the adults in the U.S. live paycheck to paycheck. Wrap your head around that for a moment and think about what the economic consequences of that are, right? And then if a layoff happens, if they lose a job for whatever reason, the impact that has not just on that family, but how that ripples out through local economy and to the greater economy. Last year, or this past year, credit card debt in the US was $1.1 trillion. Again, try to wrap your head around that number. That is an unseemly amount of money. And that kind of debt and the fact that people live paycheck to paycheck have a destabilizing impact on the larger economy. It's really important for people to begin to get a handle on their financial literacy and understand the whole process, build those habits, all these things we've talked about in other videos. So those sort of decision-making things don't happen, so that we don't have that destabilizing impact on the economy as a whole. And as it said in the very opening of this, right, we can change the economic situation of our country in one generation simply by teaching and getting people to act on their knowledge of financial literacy. So I want you to think for a moment about what happens if you have sound money management skills, financial literacy, and really understand income and debt and how to even create more wealth for yourself. It's that impact overall is dramatic. And you can do a kind of an easy thought experiment in trying to think where your money goes, right? So when you spend money, there's money that you have in your savings account, checking account, what have you, and you spend it, that money then, goes to that company, wherever you spent that product. They make a profit, they reinvest in their business. You bought something that hopefully you value in some ways, even if it was something for pleasure, you getting pleasure out of it. So, you're happy with it, what have you. They reinvest that money to expand their product base, come up with some new ideas, new things that people want, need, improves our quality of life, hires more workers, etc. The other end, when you're saving and investing, it also does the same thing. When you're investing in stocks and bonds, or even in the general stock market, where that money's going into new companies and startup companies and people seeing the potential, all of that has a positive impact on economic growth, our quality of life, our luxury items, all of those type of things. But when we are spending more than we earn, right, and that debt that needs to be paid back at some point, and many times people are now spending so much they can't pay it back, well, then that money didn't really get to those people. It begins to create this bubble. And when we think about these bubbles, and we've heard about the .com bubble and the real estate bubble and all these other things that have happened, and when it breaks, there's a big crash. People are hurting, they lose money, they lose a lot of financial, there's distress in communities. It's not a good thing. It can be solved through financial literacy and understanding, good choices, good habits. The solution is financial literacy. So what can schools, communities do about it? Teach it. Not just teach it like in high school, begin early. There are things families can do. That's part of the community on an individual basis. Let's go back to things like allowances and teaching young children about working for some money that they get and then how to keep track of it. You can begin that at an easy age with some very simple envelope process, right? You pay them in cash, you have certain envelopes. This is for saving, this is something that you can spend on right now. Simple little things like that. You start that at a young age. You begin teaching it early throughout schooling. That's what communities, that's what families can do to begin to change the tide. So as we wrap up yet another video, I would encourage you to register for one of our free webinars. There's a few out there. One that you might want to try out is emotional hygiene, because there's so many emotions related to financial kind of situations. This will kind of teach you some steps that you can do to manage those emotions a little bit better. So I would encourage you to do that. Of course, I would love to have you as a subscriber to our channel and come back and check out some of our other videos.